we've seen the video about the Priestess, which was, in my opinion, a very interesting lore to the overall like Arknight universe. But maybe what will be way more interesting is insane legacy of the Arknight Doctor. I feel like I knew a couple things about the Doctor like overall, but I believe, especially with this video having 20 minutes length, there's gonna be so many cool details about the Doctor that I don't know yet, so let's dive into it.
The Doctor of Arknights is one of the most complex characters ever written in a gacha game. When you first start the game, you never believe this amnesiac self-insert has more backstory than the entire lore of most AAA titles. With Enfield on the horizon, I think it's important to understand what this man has done, especially...
Also, like, speaking about the Arknight Enfield, didn't they, like, nerve him a little bit? When I saw, like, for very first time the Doctor, like, in the Arknights, I was like, oh my god, this dude is kind of like ominous, very mysterious, but like in the Arknight Enfield, it's like, hey boss, sorry, tomorrow I might gonna be a little bit late to the work. Hope you don't mind.
When comparing him to the Administrator, I'll be referring to the Doctor as he, as that's my interpretation based on how he's portrayed in the story and the nature of his relationships with important female characters. Some clearly more.
I mean, isn't it obvious? Are there some like certain group of people who actually like calling the Doctor she or they them? Didn't Doctor have a child with the Priestess, by the way? Or did they just like touch the fingers and artificially create the living being? Or am I missing something? I don't know.
Emotionally driven than others. What makes the Doctor so compelling are his flaws despite his extreme intelligence. He is, without question, the smartest man alive. But being smart doesn't mean being right. This isn't a story about a flawless super commander leading his people from victory to victory, but about what happens when intelligence outpaces morality. This is a highly condensed retelling of Arknight's greatest character.
Let's begin.
The Doctor is far from an ordinary being. He's a remnant of the predecessor civilization, a hyper-advanced society that predates modern races and helped jumpstart major projects on Terra, such as Civili Eterna and, of course, Originium. He, alongside another character who I won't name just yet, was one of the founders of Project Originium, the very root cause of many of the tragedies we see in modern Arknights. And as some of you know, there are a lot of them. This naturally raises the question, why did these projects begin in the first place? That's where the story dips into cosmic horror. Explaining it in full is outside the scope of this video, but the short version is this. During their travels through the cosmos, the predecessors discovered a light that unraveled the fabric of existence itself. This thing was clearly not a natural phenomenon of the universe, so the predecessors went to work, searching for any possible way to counter it. That research ultimately led Oracle and his colleagues to create what they believed was their best defense against the light, Originium. By this point, the predecessor civilization was already collapsing, forcing the Doctor into a role that went beyond mere survival.
This is also kind of interesting, like being forced to do something, you usually miscalculating at least some minor outcome, right? I'm kind of trying to see the reason here why the Originium having some type of side effects, because I feel like this could be it. Like if the project felt or has been, you know, rushed, surely it's gonna have some consequences, right? It's basically with everything, like if you rush it, and especially if you do it under the pressure, you will create or figure out amazing things, but also at the same time there has to be some, I would say, cons or, you know, some kind of side effect that you basically don't have a time to kind of neglect. I feel like this could be like one of those things.
Became a senior researcher and possibly one of the last true decision makers left. Yeah, this guy had a weight of an entire civilization and the fate of the cosmos resting on his shoulders.
Yeah, and this is exactly like what I'm talking about. Just imagine the pressure that you got, that you have to solve a really difficult problem, and you having like all this pressure behind you. And also based on the previous lore, we know, or at least like that's how I understood it, that the Arknight Doctor, he's basically in a way like really caring, you know, like really care about the humanity, really care about like the living beings, the people, things like that. So it basically like multiplies the entire the like pressure and the stress. So of course there has to be something wrong with that like stupid stone. But at least like I hope the Originium is kind of stone. It looks like a rock.
That burden goes a long way toward explaining his cold, calculated demeanor, which we'll return to later. It's time to fulfill the promise of revealing what many would consider the Doctor's former romantic partner. I'm sure in such a dire situation,
Rest
not
in
much
peace.
romance was had at the time, but you gotta understand that her
By the way, could you imagine, just for a second, imagine that the priestess eventually change her mind and be on the doctor's side, and they would basically like working on everything together essentially. Just imagine how beautiful that world would eventually looks like, and the happy family they could potentially be.
a dire situation, not much romance was had at the time, but you gotta understand that her dedication to you is real. She will stop at nothing to get you back. This character is none other than the infamous Priestess. The game takes a shitload of time to finally reveal her, but once it does, you start to realize something unsettling. There was another main character all along. While the Doctor lost his memories to amnesia, Priestess represents those memories. A singular, uncompromising goal to counter the light, or at the very least, survive it. She worked directly with Oracle.
Also, I kind of feel like she must feel really lonely, like comparing to Doctor. Am I wrong? Like, am I crazy? I feel like the Doctor eventually, you know, along the line, having so many people that he can talk to and stuff. But like, as far as I like heard from like the Priestess side, that seems to be like really one-sided and a very lonely journey, like overall.
To develop Originium, which she views as the pinnacle of creation. With Originium, you can effectively play God, and God is exactly what they believed they needed to stop the light. As of now, Priestess is written as a villain due to her complete refusal to compromise. Her ideology is simple: save everyone at any cost, even if that cost means sacrifices, sometimes on the scale of millions. This mirrors the Doctor's own pre-amnesia beliefs. Save the future, even if the present must burn.
I mean, isn't it in a way like, at least the way he said it, right? Like sacrifice himself for like a greater purpose. Isn't it in like almost every, you know, book or the movies with the heroes essentially? The heroes tends to, you know, like sacrifice for a greater good, or, you know, sacrifice something. So like what I'm trying to say is still I am a little bit like 60% on the Priestess side, because especially like seeing the world of the Arknight overall, I feel like the Priestess is not gonna be like really straightforward characters, and probably there are also gonna be still a lot of things that we don't know about her. I would say there still could be a certain possibility that eventually it flips the side, and maybe the Doctor eventually did something really wrong that we don't know about. At least like that's how I was thinking about it, like writing the story, and wanted to make it a little bit more interesting over the long run. I don't know.
We've already touched on Originium in the last chapter as both the solution to and the end of entire civilizations. The first Originium was created on Terra during the TCAS period, roughly 13,000 years ago. As you know, the original intention was to create an energy source capable of assimilating matter into data, essentially transporting everything into another dimension known as the assimilated universe, where
Also, maybe you could guys enlighten me a little bit. What actually happen like if you destroy this like you know, storage? Because like from my point of the view, I assume like if you want to create like, you know, simulated universe, things like that, it has to be stored somewhere, right? You cannot like create some artificial universe or the life and not being preserved in, you know, it cannot live in a vacuum, right? Because having this assumption of mine, it seems to be way more vulnerable against like the, you know, outside sources. You know what I mean? Like now people can protect each other, things like that. But if everyone is gonna be like inside the stone, pretty much like anything can happen, you know?
they could hide from the all-destroying light. After the first seeds of Originium were planted, the Doctor and Priestess entered stasis, intending to sleep for thousands of years until Originium had fully consumed the planet. However, during their stasis, the light appeared out of nowhere and swept across Terra, wiping out nearly everything. Likely due to various precautions and smaller predecessor projects, the light failed to completely annihilate the planet, but this forced Oracle to awaken far earlier than planned and initiate his contingency measures. AMA-10, an advanced life form created by the Doctor and Priestess, was given the name Kaltzit and instructed to find herself. A vague command to say the least, but one Kaltzit interpreted as save this planet and do some crazy shit while we sleep. And this still wasn't the end of Doctor's failures. Due to errors in his calculations, Originium became a planetary cancer. While it succeeded as a near-limitless energy source, it also gave rise to life. The T-Cas, which were the natives of the planet, were these little stupid-looking creatures, and they used Originium to transform themselves into more of the image of the predecessors. The first of the T-Cas to transform was the Far Chaser when it came into contact with Civilite Eterna, the Black Crown. This was the first step towards intelligent life. Life that would eventually evolve into the Terrans of today and ultimately become the reason behind the Doctor's betrayal of his own ideals.
Oh boy, Sarkas. I actually heard a lot about the Sarkas. I've read a lot of comments that these people are actually like true villain. But also on the other side, I read it's actually the very like opposite. So I kind of wonder like what is the
of years
view
later,
here?
long after the T-Cas life forms had evolved into the Sarkas and beyond, Kaltzit found herself at her wits' end. Over millennia, she had worked tirelessly to ensure evolution progressed smoothly. But it was finally time to awaken the creator himself. This is where the Doctor meets Teresa for the first time. She is known as the King. This is where the Doctor meets Teresa for the first time. She is known as the King of Sarkas, a life form deeply connected to Originium and the assimilated universe. The black crown she wears above her head is, in fact, a model of a long-lost predecessor project. Civilite Eterna. You can imagine the Doctor's confusion when he encounters an Originium byproduct who understands the assimilated universe better than he does in some sense. The Sarkas are direct descendants of Originium and at the same time living proof of its corruption. Through Teresa and Kaltzit, the Doctor is forcibly drawn into Sarkas politics, learning firsthand about their culture, their suffering, and the horrifying fate they are doomed to inherit.
Oh, okay, now they seems to be far more interesting than I thought. The fact like they are basically like the very first, race, it's kind of interesting. Now it kind of explained the like Originium like attached to the body, which like also at the same time looking pretty badass.
They are doomed to inherit. Doctor quickly learns Teresa is an idealist, but that doesn't stop him from admiring her. Her vision is genuinely noble, to unite the Sarkas, cure Oripathy, and bring an end to endless war. But the Doctor had already calculated the opposite. More accurately, he knew that halting the evolution of Originium was a logistical impossibility. For the ultimate goal of survival required the suffering of these people. He could search for a cure to Oripathy as long as he wanted, but in the end, none of it would truly matter. He wanted to believe in Teresa. He wanted to believe that what she was doing meant something.
Just believe her, buddy.
In reality, he simply allowed her to act freely until the moment he decided to proceed with his own mission. Kaltzit suspected this outcome from the beginning and feared what she herself would do when the time came to choose a side. And finally, exactly as he had calculated, Teresa was betrayed by her own people. When the moment came, when he could have saved her without hesitation, the Doctor instead stood by and watched as she was murdered by assassins. A moment.
Oh my god, really? Sorry, that's minus 3000 Terra credit score right here.
He swore he would never forget, nor forgive himself for. After the attack was suppressed at the cost of her life, he appeared before her, crushed by guilt as he witnessed her final moments. Teresa had always known
Okay, knowing this, do you remember like I was saying like I'm 60% on the Priestess side? Now I'm 70 or 65, let's say. No, you know what? I actually like this character a lot. 70. I'm on 70 on the Priestess side now. Because until now, based on like what I understood about the Doctor, I thought he would basically like, I don't know, do something besides just like watching and then coming after that.
This was inevitable. She too suspected the Doctor's betrayal, for the most knowledgeable man alive when it came to Originium could never have been on Terra without reason. With the last strength she had left, she took the Doctor's hands and wiped his memory, his knowledge of Originium, the light, his mission, and Priestess. Just as he once instructed Kal'tsit to find herself, Teresa wanted him to do the same.
Oh my god.
The aftermath of Babel's collapse and the death of the king of Sarkaz was utterly devastating. Sarkaz from across the land mourned their fallen ruler, some consumed by grief, others by violent vengeance, W being a prime example. With his memories erased, the Doctor fell into a coma and was once again placed into the sarcophagus where he slept. Only a handful of people knew what truly happened.
Oh my god, like seeing this, not gonna lie, this kinda melting my heart. I don't know, like overall, based on what I'm hearing about this character, I genuinely like this character a lot. Also, like being betrayed by own people and in a way, you know, kinda being betrayed or pushed away from the Doctor. I would literally put her like on a Priestess side, like when it comes to like a goal betrayal in a way. Priestess and this one, it's basically like having a really sad, you know, past or, you know, the future.
In that fateful day.
Well, she got no future, right?
Kal'tsit. She had desperately hoped the Doctor would save Teresa. His betrayal hurt her more than anyone else's. For years of planning and
by the way, like, hearing about this, is actually Doctor a good guy? I'm genuinely curious now if Doctor is actually a good guy. What do you guys think? Like, please let me know in the comment. Do you guys think the Doctor is eventually a good guy or not? I'm starting to having my doubts here, like, even more.
Operation under Babel came to an abrupt halt because
I had it before, but
that
now it's
single
increasing.
decision. One vital character we have yet to fully discuss is Amia, a young Qantas girl rescued by the Doctor from a tragic accident that claimed her family. He and Teresa raised Amia as if she were their own. More importantly, Amia was present
like
when the
history
assassins
repeating itself.
infiltrated Babel. She was there to witness the death of her guardian. Knowing her time was short, Teresa transferred.
I mean, I know this is like a chibi version of the characters, but I don't know, that maybe the way he said it, that he, or basically she was witnessing his own death. This is brutal. Like, this is genuinely brutal. I'm
to witness the
sad.
death of her guardian. Knowing her
feeling a
time
little
was
bit depressed,
short,
not gonna
Teresa
lie.
transferred the power of the Black Crown to Amia long before the incident took place. At such a young and fragile age, Amia was chosen to become
Yo,
the
I gotta
first
see that anime,
outlet
dude.
king of Sarkaz and the new wielder of Civilite Eterna. Teresa had no choice but to trust that the Doctor wouldn't betray Amia as well, and she was wise enough to know
That haven't happened yet, right? Right? It would be actually insane 3 times the charm.
that he treated her differently from everyone else. It was a gamble that would condemn Amia to immense
Oh my god, just
pain,
imagine
a
for the 3rd
torturous
time.
life, but there was no other option left.
Rebirth.
A couple years later, the Doctor is reawakened from his slumber. This is where the game truly begins, introducing us to Rhodes Island, Originium, and the wider world of Arknights. At this point, Originium appears to be nothing more than a scourge upon the land, a virus to be eradicated. The Doctor is meant to be completely unaware of what it truly represents, which you can imagine would leave a certain someone very displeased. Rhodes Island is essentially a rebranded Babel, an organization dedicated to finding a cure for oropathy, while also fielding a roster of elite combatants to survive in a hostile world. Being freed from his original mission fundamentally changes the Doctor's once cold demeanor. He awakens weaker, but still unmistakably brilliant. a commander capable of navigating nearly any situation. Operators who knew him before often describe him as a soft monster, someone who now genuinely cares for his
Yeah, that sounds
operators,
about
feels
right.
guilt when lives are lost, yet remains willing to make the decisions that save or end lives when necessary.
I don't know, like these last two sentences, I would kind of apply to the priestess as well. Am I crazy? Like the more I'm hearing about it, I don't see like such a huge difference between the priestess and the doctor.
Amnesia didn't erase the doctor's nature, it only dulled the blade.
Which I kind of wonder, is it actually good or the bad thing, you know?
We won't go
Maybe it
into
was a bad
detail
thing.
of all his travels with Rhodes Island, since that's basically a recount of the entire main story. What matters here isn't where he went, but who he became along the way. Over time, the Doctor begins to embody Teresa's ideals, where once he calculated outcomes coldly, he now actively
Oh,
chooses
man.
to save people from devastation, even when doing so is inefficient or dangerous. With every major conflict
Could
and
he do it,
turning
like,
point,
before?
fragments of his memories resurface. But what's important is that he never reverts to what he once was. Even as he remembers more, he remains committed to that ideal. That said, two massive problems still loom over everything he does. First, the Doctor still doesn't know the full truth about Originium, the predecessors, or the light itself. His understanding is incomplete, built on fragments and consequences rather than origins. Second, his former partner has yet to reveal herself. We'll get there. And if she ever does, more like when, it would
It's
spell
bloodbath.
disaster for everything Rhodes Island stands for. Oh, and as a bonus, Teresa is still technically alive, and she has
Ooh, okay.
absolutely nothing to say to us. Slowly but surely,
Even the doctor changed a lot, right? And he's kind of one who kind of escape it in a good way. Oh my god, like Loki, I want to see it all burn.
the Doctor begins to regain Kalsit's trust. It's not sudden, and it's never unconditional.
I want to see some
but
revenge
he
on
comes
Doctor.
to believe that this version of the Doctor will not repeat the same mistake. At the same time, he grows
I don't know
closer
about that.
to Amia. What began as protection evolves into genuine partnership, and through his actions, he earns the
let's
deep
hope nothing
respect
more.
of Rhodes Island's operators, not because he commands them, but because he listens and bears the weight of their decisions alongside them. Before long, the Doctor's name becomes infamous across Terra. Wherever Rhodes Island appears, the situation turns in their favor. The Chernobog incident is resolved, and Reunion's most feared leader is defeated with a surprisingly small force. Increasingly powerful and dangerous operators willingly place their lives in his hands. Even massive organizations begin to regard him as a formidable ally rather than a pawn. Eventually, the Doctor
Okay.
plays a decisive role in
Londinium.
stopping the war in Londinium. With the involvement of both Teresa and Teresis, the Sarkaz are finally freed from the assimilated universe. This act lays the groundwork for a new Cosdell, a place the Sarkaz can finally call home.
When I'm hearing this, it would be such an amazing idea to make a movie, you know? Having like a Arknight prologue as like a first movie, maybe do like a trilogy or something like that. But like having it before the game as like a one movie to having like all these things, that would be like insane. With this type of art style, I would love to see it.
At this point, the bond between the Doctor, Amia, and Kalsit reaches its peak. Kalsit believes with complete certainty that if the Doctor is ever forced to choose again, he will choose what she believes is the right decision. That he will
Okay.
not lead them astray.
What about Mia?
And then, Priestess returns.
Ah, shit. Here we go again.
The return of Priestess, contrary to what certain fanatics on Twitter might suggest, was not a welcome one. Now, the way her return was handled is questionable, aggressive even, calls it more or less through hands before anyone attempted a proper conversation. And yes, I personally believe, as one great philosopher once said, that conversation is the cornerstone of evolution. But we'll set my opinions aside for now. Rhodes Island believed they were prepared for Priestess's return. They were gravely mistaken. No one was ready for the cataclysmic shift she would bring to the landship, let alone to the world itself. The Doctor had already steeled his resolve. Though, again, I can't help but feel a sit-down podcast might have saved everyone a lot of trouble. The woman he once found comfort now stood in direct opposition to him and his friends. He knows Priestess isn't
of course, it
inherently
makes
evil,
sense.
yet he cannot comprehend her absolute refusal to abandon the mission. Long ago, the Doctor calculated that any path outside the Originium project was impossible. Survival demanded it. Priestess still fully believes in that conclusion, but that calculation was made lifetimes ago, and things have changed. New possibilities now exist. Civilite Eterna has awakened under Amia's control. The Doctor has unified a powerful coalition of like-minded individuals. Terra itself has proven capable of resisting fate in ways no one anticipated. Terra is clearly special, and the Doctor believes this, hiding
But also we got these observers, right? I don't know if this is like a little bit different kind of thing, but the way he's saying that they're basically like developing in a way that they could eventually like change the fate. But previously I've seen that like observers are basically like beyond like comprehension, so basically they got no choice. Which like me putting these informations together, I would still be on a Priestess side. You know what I mean? Like yeah, a lot of things change, but eventually the outcome probably gonna be the
within
same.
the assimilated universe won't stop the light from continuing its
Oh damn, it's getting
destruction.
too
Perhaps
deep.
the better option
It's too much
is
for
to
me.
confront it directly, using the resources and unity they've built on Terra. If Oripathy could cease its destructive
Look at the
course
boy,
and
he's
instead
standing
become
alone.
a force of unification, the chances of victory might be higher than anyone once believed. Nothing is certain, of course. We don't even fully understand how the light works. It may be incomprehensible even to the greatest minds in the universe. But at this point, the Doctor has gone too far to turn back. He would rather die trying than hide away for eternity. After all, even eternity is no guarantee, and players are clearly meant to agree with this sentiment, because what is living if not existing in reality? This
Okay,
brings
let's
us
see.
to the question of Enfield.
Honestly, I feel like Enfield, it's like a different kind of lore that we just like occupy the planet and like trying to make as much money as possible, like building the factories across the world.
Assuming
That's how I
it's
feel
not
about
a
it.
spin-off, that is. If
least
Enfield
so
is
far.
a direct sequel, we're left asking what became of the Doctor and Rhodes Island? What became of Priestess and the Light? Many, many years have passed, and with some operators returning as a different version of their old selves and Rhodes Island clearly being mentioned, it only raises more questions. It's not just asking if the Doctor is still alive, it's more so asking if the Doctor won. Then again, it's a lot more gray than a simple win or lose situation. Of course, we
No.
cannot forget about Amia. Did
Oh my, I totally forgot about Amia. Like when it comes to the Arknight Enfield, I was like, actually the reason I started playing Arknights was because of the Enfield, because I wanted to see, you know, what could be possibly coming into the Enfield. And it's really surprising that I never like, there were never a single thought in my mind that Amia would be in the Enfield. But now I cannot take these thoughts away from my brain. I would love to see Amia in the Enfield. 2.0, please bring here.
she continue walking the path Teresa set her on, or was the weight of the Black Crown too great, cutting her journey short? The Doctor in Rhodes Island has so much more story to tell. The legacy is nowhere near over, which makes it all the more impressive. Thank
I mean, it's nowhere near to be over, yet at this point we have, I don't even know like how many written lore when it comes to the Arknight. I feel like this is literally, like I said, this is lifetime project, like that there is no way it's gonna be resolved like within a 10 or 20 years. This world is basically going in a parallel with ours. You know what I mean? Like there is like so much shit to cover. To a certain point, I kind of want to give up on it. You know what I mean? Like there are so many things, which is kind of like a double-edged sword, right? Sometimes you want to have a little bit, you know, deep lore, things like that. But I feel like sometimes too much is kind of, you know, counterproductive. But maybe it's gonna be just like my issue, but I would love to see, you know, kind of conclusion, you know, like coming, you know, like after the year 10, assuming the Arknight is now like 6th or 7th year now. Basically what I'm trying to say is, if this is going to be some type of One Piece, I will definitely drop it at some point because I'm gonna be like tired of not having some kind of resolve. Yeah, so like overall really great video. It was really entertaining and insightful at the same time, but I have to say like the people who hating like on the Priestess and stuff and being on the doctor side, when I'm seeing this, like there literally everyone is a villain in a way, like everyone having some kind of main antagonist energy, you know what I mean? Like all these characters are not black and white. Basically that's what I'm trying to say is no character is right and the other is wrong. They having just like different kind of visions and, you know, actions, but by end of the day they always doing the same thing. They just like trying to follow their own vision at some cost. And I feel like the doctor overall, it's not a huge difference between, you know, the Priestess and the second one, I forgot the name now. But overall really interesting. Let me guys know what do you guys think about the doctor. I know he's been more popular than the Priestess, at least like based on what I read, but after this video I don't see him, you know, in a great spotlight as previously. So, let me know, hope you enjoyed, and maybe see you next time. Take care.